So in our sort of growth journey, we're very blessed in that we could take time, and it was almost 18 months of like surveying, and we were pitching what we could do and how we could help, but we're also information gathering about what do we need to do, not just today, but in the long-term sort of approach to the solution.
Welcome, Australia. It's that time again for another podcast from the Mate team, where we try and get into your head with stuff that makes us sound smart. Sit back and relax. It's time for us to be mates.
In today's episode, we're talking to Daniel Sandaver, the owner of a scale-up technology company called Codafication, which is an Insurtech solving data complexity at the heart of the insurance industry. From chasing cyclones to chairing technology companies, Dan has a broad experience in project management, business development, enterprise solutions, and change management. Dan's also the proud father of 2 sets of twin boys, 4 boys under 4, of which, like the companies, is a blessing, dynamic, and a new challenge every day. Today we're going to talk about life as a startup and moving to a fully fledged business. Just like the Mate story, it's full of trials and tribulations, as well as unbelievable success. Welcome, Dan, to the Let's Be Mates podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, gents, for letting me dial in and be a part of it.
No worries at all. I think we're excited about sharing your story to our audience, and I think you've got some great stuff to tell. And the first thing I noticed in your bio that you have 2 sets of identical twins, or are they identical?
No, they're fraternal.
Fraternal,
so,
all right.
Yeah, we've got chalk and cheese in each set that have come through, but all boys. So it's a very busy household at home.
Yeah, well, I mean, like as I say, I relate to that. Obviously, starting this business with my identical twin brother David, and so we get twins, and so we love you even more for that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Dan, you've got an interesting background from reading about you. Do you want to give us a bit of a quick rundown of where you've been, where you've come from, and what you're doing now?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I've had almost like a bit of a Forrest Gump career to date. I originally worked in software development, building web applications back in the late 90s and saw the sort of rise of the .com era, and then went on from that to go and promote music festivals in Queensland, working with big electronic music artists and working with local council and government authorities to put these massive sort of dance parties on in the Botanic Gardens in Brisbane. So in my background, it's always sort of been about project management, but I've just worked in a couple of different mediums. But along that journey, one of my lifelong friends, Drew Butler, sat me down and sort of said, look, I want to start a construction company, but more something focused on business to business. So we set off and built Australian Building and Construction Group, which is still a successful operating construction company that works in the financial services sector for the insurance industry. And so we went sort of through, I guess, growing that business, and that now has over 75 full-time employees, but it engages with over 1,000 subcontractors at any one time, helping assess damage at people's homes and remediate the damage related to an insurance claim. So, yeah, I've sort of storm chased cyclones and been in the eyes of cyclones and in floods and up on roofs sort of looking at damage. But it's funny, I've sort of come full circle and set up Codafication, a tech startup, over 5 years ago. And so I've come full circle in my career where I've had a breadth of knowledge in project management and growing a business. But now I've ended up back in tech, building software as a service to help solve those problems in growing a company.
Yeah, and so what was the journey to decide to get to build Codify? Was there Codification? Sorry, was there a single point in time, or a single experience, or an interaction you had that you said, "Shit, I need to create a business out of this and do things better"?
Yeah, look, I guess it's like any sort of business that's gestating and growing. You sort of you survey the land of IT software, and we did a similar thing. We licensed some technology and kind of bastardized it into a version of project and job management for our business. And we sort of sat back and looked at the amount of money we were pouring into, development, maintenance and care and looking after that product. And then we kind of sat back and went, wait up, there's hundreds of thousands of businesses that work in distributed field services similar to our business. And maybe we can help them by enabling them not having to go to a big, expensive software solution that they have to go and change and sort of fit a square peg into a round hole. And we sort of thought, let's set up Codafication and build this software that's highly configurable but lightweight and scalable, that can help sort of growing medium-sized businesses take their organisation to another level in a cost-effective but agile way that makes them drive business process more efficiently.
Sounds really cool.
And like when you started, what did that look and feel like? You didn't obviously walk into an established office space and business on day one. Like, how did it start out for you?
We're very fortunate because we grew Australian Building and Construction Group, from a sort of secondhand, ute and a laptop, and grew that business up, and it had a fixed premises and a lot of employees and was a growing company. So we're lucky when we sort of set off and built Codafication, a tech startup, that we did have office space, and we had a lot of the, shared services to make us professional from day one. Things like human resource managers and accounts, receivable and payable, and a legal framework that we could sort of rely on to build the company from day one. So we were very fortunate from that point, but we definitely treated Codafication like a startup. It had to grow organically. We funded it ourselves. So we had our own runway, but we were fortunate in a way that we could sort of recruit people and put them in a professional atmosphere. But we still treated it like it had to grow organically and stand on its own 2 feet and derive its own revenue and have its own P&L and balance sheet and prove that it was a company that could grow and be successful.
And at what point, I guess you had some foundations there to start with, but at what point did you identify there were sort of gaps in your skill sets and things like that, and did you reach out to partners or did you hire people? Like, what was the growth around that, I guess?
Yeah, so I guess we treated it greenfield. So we came in with what laser focus on the business problems were that we wanted to achieve in the short and long term with the software. But we definitely went through recruiting and hiring expertise where we sort of sat potential candidates down and identified, we needed a CTO from day one that could drive the tech stack and the direction. And we're very lucky to meet James Peplinkhouse from day one, who's our CTO. But we presented to him, look, it's completely greenfield. You get to come in and build Rome, and it mightn't be built in a day, but this is the vision. And we empowered sort of key people like that they could take ownership and impart their sort of creative DNA into the business and help us build it from ground up. So we didn't want to force preconceived ideas into people coming into the business. We wanted to empower them to be creative problem solvers that could drive the direction of where we wanted to go. And we've definitely gone through, growing the business and analysing the needs of the business. And when you're a sort of bootstrap startup with self-funding, you can't have all those great services and management layer from day one. So you're definitely sort of wearing multiple hats. But as the business has grown, we've brought in key people at the right time, such as, managing the sales funnel at the front and the customer support and success of selling product. But then also built, stronger middle management layers and processes as the business has grown. We definitely don't try to own it all internally. We identify where we're short, and then we sort of put a business case together internally of where we need to recruit experts that help us drive growth in the business.
Yeah, the journey you went on, and you mentioned that when you start a business you wear many hats, and you basically evolve as you go. Once you build revenue, you evolve, you establish new clients, new things, and that's how your business evolves, right? We know that so well in our business where we started with nothing, then somebody bought our service as shit. All right, well now we need to service this customer, right? Oh shit, we need to send this person a bill, or they need to be able to log in somewhere, and now we got to tell NBN to connect their service and all those different things. And so it all starts somewhere, right? But one thing that we did when we first started, we profiled customers or different people and why they would need us, right? And that's determined what we were trying to achieve. Do people actually want to buy it or do it or what it is? And would you have a profile of a customer that would be perfect for your business and why a customer would choose you guys for their service? Do you have like a particular person? Is it a business? Is it a person that has certain X, Y, and Z that they require? I'd love to understand what would be the perfect customer that could use codification services. Yeah,
great question. I guess to sort of talk about our journey, if I can wind the clock back a little bit from when we started, we were very much of the mind that we had an idea and a vision of what we needed to build, but we needed to go out and survey the market and talk to potential customers about the problems that they're facing. And that through the building company that we had access to a lot of key decision makers in large insurance companies, enabled us to go and talk to them about their problems and understand, okay, for a big enterprise client that wants to do, business to business integration and automate their process, what are the challenges that they face and who are the key people that make the buying decision? And then we kind of scale back into more the medium-sized enterprises that work within this ecosystem of supply chain and ask them what their problems were. So in our sort of growth journey, we're very blessed in that we could take time, and it was almost 18 months of like surveying, and we were pitching what we could do and how we could help, but we're also information gathering about what do we need to do, not just today, but in the long-term sort of approach to the solution. And so we've definitely since built out personas of who we know where we can solve problems for. It's not necessarily the very small end of town, the mum and dad operators, but where we find the base level of where we sort of help is from companies that have 50 employees up, and then all the way through to large enterprises, which are multinational or global companies that have various problems. And we've identified who the sort of key decision makers are, how we go about presenting and finding funding to then stand up projects that we can implement with those clients. It's a very interesting story because normally as a startup, you've got an idea, you build a prototype, you pitch it, you try to get funding, and then you get caught in the grind where if you don't hit the mark, your business can die. Whereas we had a little bit of a fortunate scenario that we could survey the market before we sort of really scaled the spending and the investment in what we want to do. We're very blessed from that point of view.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, I guess you found out how your business could be successful before you had to go and spend the money to, what it comes down to, they say build it and hope they come, or build it and they will come, or basically, I mean, I know where you come from as well. We've been to the part, we can't build it until they come because you got to drive revenue and all these different things. It's a balance of both. But I mean, your approach sounds sound, and I mean, it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that too, I can't say it's been a perfect scenario where the first thing we built commercialized with great success. I mean, like any business, you have to iterate on what you're doing and look at the internal process of the business and how you're delivering. And some of our products, over 5 years ago in their first sort of gestation of what we built to prototype to sell to people, they've greatly changed along the way. And I think that's also the thing that we've tried to embrace is being agile and being able to sort of pivot the product set that we've got. And that sort of went into the technology blueprint of how can we quickly modify, adapt and deliver what we're doing so that we can change and meet the market and find ultimately perfect product market fit to sell.
It's cool.
Dan, your latest iteration software release called Crunchwork, it's already saved the insurance industry over $24 million in cost savings. Tell us what the solution does, but then also how these businesses are realising these savings as well.
Yeah, so Crunchwork's attacking, I guess, the project and job management, problem where you have large organisations such as insurance companies or asset managers that have, I guess, a large volume of jobs that they need to distribute out to a supply chain. And so Crunchwork's coming at tackling the problem of digitising the value chain of how services are delivered and then customers are updated. But it also comes then about tackling the supply chain and how they're integrated digitally to feed data and workflow and automate the process between all parties. So we started off focused on the insurance industry, and we call in that segment, it's called the triangle of confusion. It's when you've got the customer, the insurer, and the supply chain, bouncing around a process and workflow. And the customer's generally the one left confused about where they're at during the process, what's the outcome, and what's the next logical step. So Crunchwork's solving that problem by digitizing, obviously, the customer experience layer so that everyone's receiving constant communication. And that's important in a Uber-esque kind of day and age where people want to know at any point in time where they're at in the delivery of services. But it's also important to make it easy to integrate the supply chain so that, large companies doing business with the supply chain can get structured quoting in the right format to auto approve jobs to then go to the next step and sort of optimize the process. So if you can imagine a single insurance claim, traditionally it can run for over 60 days to process a very basic insurance claim, whereas Crunchwork can compress that down to days, if not weeks, by allowing what they call straight-through processing and automating that customer engagement and the supply chain engagement. So it's a complex problem, but we're coming about it with a simple solution, but under the hood, very powerful technology that can glue all the stakeholders together.
You started to touch on it, and I guess there's two parts to this question, but you come in to roll your solution out to a company, and how much work is, I guess, involved in that, in digitizing that supply chain, or are these companies that you're working with already at a point where this can roll out? And then I guess the real question is, what if a company comes to you with and says, "Yep, we need this," where should they be at, or what do they need to get to?
Yeah, I guess depending on the client that you're servicing and where the product gets deployed, there's different needs and wants. So at the big end of town in large enterprise, there's a lot of requirements around security, data sovereignty, how data's managed, and then all of the, I guess, requirements to digitize the business. And so there's many stakeholders involved in that process. And the best way that we enable the solution is generally partnering with a large enterprise to work out all of the scope, user stories, and the measurements of success. And then we partner with those companies to either embed our engineers with their engineers or train their teams on how to take our software and configure it themselves. And that's had really great success in the big end of town. And those projects are larger just because of the order of magnitude of what they require to achieve a gold standard of how they're going to drive innovation in the business. But then we also service that medium enterprise end of town where you've got sort of smaller operators that have a very clear needs and wants basis. And we work with them on a more shorter iterative approach of configuring the software and standing it up and deploying it and helping their business, I guess, achieve, a digital overhaul in a very quick process.
And in those two scenarios, what would be a rough time frame that you guys work to roll out?
Yeah, so generally for the small end of town, it could be analysed within a week and then deploying within 2 weeks to a month to 2 months. The big end of town, we're generally talking minimum sort of 3-month engagements, but for some of the large digital transformation projects we're working on, they're 12 or multi-year kind of processes because they're overhauling huge parts of their core operating business to embed this digital solution.
Cool. So, from a customer point of view, our view is customer experience ultimately at the moment is about delivering actions or creating action for customers, drives an experience, right? In our industry, especially during COVID, there's a lot of challenges that happen with people being able to get in contact with their service provider. Now, automation is huge, right? And software that and services that enable as much automation as possible allows action to happen in real time, quick and better, and allow customers to get results quicker, right? And so around automation, obviously in all industries, it's probably the fastest growing transformation in a business, right? You know, in your business, you're close to producing that software that creates automation. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in the industry and what businesses are implementing?
Yeah, great question. So obviously there's a holy grail of automating everything and straight through processing many aspects of a value chain. And a lot of businesses have that desire. But at a basic sort of, micro level, what we find has to happen first is structuring of data at the core of the problem so that you can then automate on top of it and introduce all these great new services that drive efficiency in the business. And so at a base level, I guess you need to have the house in order to have the structured or semi-structured data so that you can drive those efficiencies. So a lot of people want to jump ahead multiple steps to get that in their business, but it's about the fundamentals being there first to be able to build on that. But definitely sort of we're seeing a movement in the industry where people that have successfully achieved that base foundation are empowering things like robotic process automation or artificial intelligence or predictive analytics to empower the end users within their business to drive better outcomes. Or it's enabled the whole process or change, design within the business to remodel how their operations work based on these new tools being available. I think ultimately where sort of AI automation and predictive insights sort of drive efficiency, obviously there's an upside where a business may be able to reduce headcount and optimize aspects of the business. But I think ultimately where those technologies are taking us is empowering more creative problem solving at the forefront where exceptions, where those processes aren't being able to take care of things, are being triaged automatically. So then a creative problem solver can use those tools to be able to bypass short circuit or provide the next best action that needs to occur where the machine can't assist. So it's a really interesting thing where obviously you get a huge productivity lift in some of these tools. But I think as well, it's also driving better customer experience because where simplified process can't take place, a more targeted human experience that can provide a better outcome for a consumer at the other end. It's driving more efficiency in a pipeline to those users. And I guess that's better for brand and experience and everyone overall.
Yeah, 100%. And, automation for us is, a big part of our strategy, but what it allows us to do, and you made a point before about, it can reduce headcount, things like that. What it's done for us is allow us to put the headcount in the right spot where it requires it, right? You can't get rid of a completely human touch point in some scenarios, especially in our world, right? The NBN, as great as it is a very convoluted type of network to sell. There's multiple technologies, multiple different types of connections and multiple different modems and routers that you use to get connected. And there's a level that automation can't achieve and where people need to be involved. And I think automations allow us to automate the things that people can do quickly and put more time in the things where people need a bit more of a support. And I think that's the great part of automation, putting people back into the places that people are really needed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what drives competitive advantage long term as well. And I mean, there's a huge national telco in Australia where I've had personal experience trying to interact with a 24/7 bot to find out a problem myself personally. And it was the most horrendous experience, but you can see that business has looked at it from a cost-cutting balance sheet perspective and helping, and I guess using distributed workforces overseas to try and support them. Yeah. Whereas the businesses that go the other way that want to use it to drive better experience, more human touch, more personal interaction, they drive better, return on investment on brand and service. And I think ultimately create sticky customers that are loyal to their product. And it, returns better to those businesses long term. So you can look at the equation in a few different ways, but I think where the success is driving it to have that paramount experience and hang on to customers when they need you the most.
100%.
Yeah, and I think for me, this is a personal use case, but a lot of things that I need to be serviced for, like, I'm happy to go and do my online banking and make all that automated and whatever it may be, even bots to a degree, right? But at the point where that automation no longer works, you need to be able to escalate to a real person or to another process. And I guess automation allows businesses, ideally allows businesses to tick all the boxes and make things run smoothly, but then, like Mark said, open up those other resources that when you get past that next level, you can talk to a real person or deal with it separately.
I couldn't agree anymore. Like, in this day and age, a lot of customers for majority of scenarios want to self-service the experience. They want to log on, they want to get quick answers, they want to get a status update or raise an issue, or they want to self-service the problem. I guess where it breaks down is where in the process design, the user can't break out of that and get that, human support or experience when needed. And they're forced down a rabbit hole because the automation design doesn't let them kind of, come out of that process. And I think that's where it's super important in the day of automation and, what's been achieved. There also has to be a bit of an omni-channel strategy where someone might come in through self-service but then drop out into chat or drop out into phone or SMS chat, and then they might loop back into the process. And I think if that's not sort of taken into account in the day of automation, it can definitely grind gears and cause a super bad customer experience.
Cool.
I had a really good experience probably like 6 months ago, I'll say, with Woolworths, and it was probably in quite a busy time for them. So I've had online shopping for the last 2 years. I think from an automation perspective, their live chat, I had an issue with a product, actually something didn't get delivered one time. You go on, I think its name's Olive, and follow the bot steps, refund straight into your account, done. Like, perfect. Couldn't fault that process. Once there was an issue where I think my order hadn't turned up or something had gone wrong, I needed to change something, and I went through the bot steps, but then I did find the link to call a real person, and it's it sort of sums up exactly what I was saying before around automation's great, and if you can ticks all your boxes, but then when you do need to escalate, as long as there's that escalation point.
Yeah, agreed. And this is sort of, I guess, a challenge in business. Is it a race to optimize and cut costs because your shareholders are demanding more profits? Or is there a way that you can look at, by providing great service, it's got a measurable output with, renewal, resubscription, or, revenue growth based on brand and providing that outcome. So it's going to be very interesting the next few years to see large businesses, and then as it sort of comes down the ladder into the medium enterprise who really embraces, human-centered design and customer experience and implementing that in their automation process, and who's purely done it as a cost-cutting exercise and pays a price in the long term.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, Dan, mate, it's we love hearing your story. I love hearing what you do. You're doing a bunch of different things, which is fantastic. So to our audience, where can they go and search more about what you're trying to achieve and how they can potentially find out about your services? What's the best way to get in contact?
Yeah, I mean, we're a digital company. We're online, codafication.com, codafication.com. And from there, you can find our three major core products, Unity Cloud, Crunchwork, and Virtual Assist. So if you want to read up, check it out online. You can chat to us there. You can drop us an email. And you can reach out from there and find out a lot more online about what we do and how we can help solve your problem.
Awesome. We'll have all those details in the show notes as well.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Dan, thanks very much for your time, mate. Appreciate it. Love hearing fellow entrepreneurial stories, and we love what you're doing. And I think in the next, maybe next 6 months, we'll get you back on again and see what the progress is.
Yeah, awesome. That'd be great. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And likewise, it was great to hear your story and be involved in your podcast. yeah, it's great to connect with other entrepreneurs and hear your side and also talk about mine. And yeah, I'd love to come back on the show at any point and reconnect with you.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to the Let's Be Mates podcast by the team at Mate.
Search for the Let's Be Mates podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and at letsbemates.com.au. Hit subscribe to get the latest episode each week.
For all your telco needs, choose a provider you can trust like a mate. Visit letsbemates.com.au, Google Mate, or call us on 13 14 13 to sign up today.
See you soon, mate.